to go now to Leslie Zander's garden in Albany. And this garden, this is a before photo from 2004. Leslie has a small, typical Albany lot. It's now 95% native. She'll also be showing us her back garden. Leslie's garden shows how you can convert a small yard into an attractive, low maintenance wildlife habitat. So what I just wanted to point out in this photo is the tree in the background with the white blossoms is a Buckeye. And this lupin here in the foreground with the purple flowers is one of the keystone species that Dr. Talamy mentioned. And in the foreground, the two green bushes here are manzanitas, which are keystone species also. So this next photo is Leslie's parking strip, and this is bird's eye Gilia, wildflower understory. And then this house during World War II was one of 20 million victory gardens, and Leslie is renewing the tradition of growing vegetables at home. These raised planter beds are running up the center of her driveway. Leslie has seen goldfinches, orioles, white-crowned sparrows in her garden. In the butterfly world, she has seen Buckeye and painted lady butterflies. She says they are frequent visitors. And some of the keystone larval host plants in this garden include pink flowering currant, vine maple, California rose, manzanita, and more. So let's go now and see Leslie. And I should have said before we entirely left Nancy that Nancy Niemeyer is going to go to her computer and she's going to try to answer questions for you on YouTube. And Leslie, in case I forget, if you would do the same when you're done. So
sure.
Leslie,
Oh my!
Thank you for joining us today and showing us your garden.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Wish everyone could have been here in person, but that's the way it is. I'm Leslie Zander, and welcome to my Albany garden. I'm going to turn things around a little here. So I'm standing in my front yard, and as Kathy said, it's a pretty small lot in the front. It's about 650 square feet. It's west facing, and there's no big structures on the south side, so it gets a lot of intensive sun throughout the day. It used to be, as you saw, all lawn, and the front window got a lot of sun. There were a few shrubs in front of it, but not much. In 2004, I decided I was going to start converting to a native garden. And I'm a botanist, so I was pretty aware of what plants I wanted to use, but I really needed help with the design. So I partnered with my friend, Donald Tarahanich, who's a native landscape designer. He's also got a strong artistic background. And we worked together on this. We decided we weren't going to draw up any plans. We're going to just get rid of the lawn first, and then use the dirt as our canvas. So that's what we did. I started by stopping watering the lawn, and about 2 or 3 months later, rented a dirt dumpster, and we just ripped it all out in about a day. I was fortunate in that it was Bermuda grass, which once it dries out, it clumps up and it's pretty easy to just haul off. I also didn't have a lot of weeds, like not a lot of oxalis and things in my yard. So anyway, we ripped it all out, and we ended up with a pretty nice dirt canvas. And then I chose my foundation plant, which is this California Buckeye. It's beautiful. I've always loved it in the wild, and I just thought it would be great in my garden. It's deciduous, so it allows the sun to come in during the winter months. But now, as you can see, it's in full leaf and full bloom. Then Donald suggested that we bring in some structural elements. So we brought in some large rocks, put those down, and then worked on our plant list. You still see me? Worked in filling in with other native shrubs that could tolerate the sun and were complementary to the Buckeye. such as we planted some ceanothus, coffee berry, manzanita, and some California sage and redbud, and then filled in on the ground cover with native bunch grasses and native perennial and annual plants. And I just wanted to, since I'm standing right here, thought that you could probably see what this looked like when we first installed it. And if you can see, the Buckeye is over just to the right of the big rock. That was 14 years ago. And here it is today. It's gone through some transitioning. First of all, you'll probably notice that the Buckeye is huge. It's pretty much taken over the lawn, or the yard, not the lawn, the yard. And because it's gotten so big, it shaded out some of my other mid-canopy plants like the ceanothus and the sage. Those are not there anymore. So we've transitioned, and I've planted a couple of ribes up by the house because they can tolerate the shade. And then all of these annuals that come up, as you can see, one of the plants that did last were these manzanita. And as you saw probably in the other photo, they were very small when I put them in, and now they're doing really well. And the strip has native wildflowers that reseed themselves every year. I don't really do anything there. Sometimes I throw in some bird's eye gilia, the California poppy, the frying pan poppy, which is the Schultzia lobii, cream cups, which is also in the poppy family. And then there are some baby blue eyes, Nemophilum and zizii, and a few little sky lupins, but they're kind of struggling out there. I did have 3 red buds out there at one point, but I lost 2 this year. They just didn't make it. When we put in this garden, we did not put down any weed cover. We also didn't amend the soil. We basically felt either make it or you don't. And we also used small sized plants. And there were 2 reasons for doing that. One is that smaller plants tend to establish better and over the long run, and then they're also cheaper. So as Nancy said in her talk, you know, sometimes you put in a plant and you decide, no, it's not the right plant, or it dies and you have to take it out. And if you don't spend that much money on it, it's not that big a deal. The biggest size plant that we put in was the Buckeye, and it was a 5-gallon. All the rest were 1 gallon or supercell size. We also did not install any irrigation. One of the things that we try to do, and I do some restoration for work, and one of the major things we try to do is plant our small plants in the fall so that they have the benefit of the winter rains to start their establishment period without shade. So that's what we tried to do here. Maintenance now is pretty simple. I used to mow that lawn, and right now I don't do much to this garden. I may go in and pull out a few weeds. I don't get that many weeds, but I sometimes get a few that I pull out. I don't water much. This garden does not require much water. I'm in a cooler environment. I'm near the coast, so it doesn't take summer water at all. In fact, you don't want to water this in the summer because it won't be good for the plants that you've got. So the other thing I do sometimes is I prune. As you can see, the manzanita are kind of flowing out over the sidewalk. So I'll go in and prune those just to keep them somewhat tidy. I just wanted to show you one other thing, because you can see the Buckeye right now and it's beautiful, large, and in bloom, but it's also just a very gorgeous plant in the wintertime. And you can see that the structure of this plant is just fabulous. I almost like it better in the winter sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna take us down the driveway and down out into the backyard. Okay. So as Kathy pointed out, this house was one of the Victory Gardens, and I'm trying to bring back some vegetable gardening here. I've got these raised beds in an unused driveway because I can't get my car through the arch. And I usually have a lot more going, but I just started everything from seed this year because plants were not too available. So I have some lettuce and some arugula going. And then I have some blueberries and things on the side. All of these planters, they don't have bottoms. They're just raised beds to hold in the soil. And then I have a bed with some herbs, some perennial tarragon, and I'll plant basil in there later. And then I have this large rhubarb plant, which produces a lot of pies. It's a very good thing. I'll bring it back to the backyard. And I have some more, this is a bottom bed. I have a wild rose that I put in a container, and one of the reasons I put it in the container is because if you plant them in the ground, they go crazy. So you end up with a hedge. But this is the backyard. And I'll walk in and set you down here. Now the backyard is a little bit bigger than the front. It's about 800, 900 square feet. And I've been transitioning to natives over the period of about, we started in about 2006 in the backyard, transitioning to natives. And because this garden was part of the Victory Gardens, it has a lot of little pathways and beds, and I didn't want to disturb all that. So I basically kept that, and I kept some of the old plants that have been here forever, and I started working around that. So I've been putting in natives when I can. And this bed over here is pretty much full of a couple of native shrubs and native perennial and annual herbaceous plants. The plant that you see in the pot is an old Buckeye, that one of the Buckeyes I was going to plant in the front, but then I decided on the other one, and this one I forgot about, and it ended up turning into a bonsai Buckeye, so I put it in this pot. The yellow flowers that are growing in the gravel are the same frying pan poppies that are out front, the Schultzia lobii. And those are all volunteers. I planted a couple of Schultzia lobii plants that I get from Annie's Annuals. I put them in a pot, and then the next year they were all over my yard. And this backyard used to have a huge lawn as well. And one of the first things we did in 2016 is we ripped out the lawn, and I got some river rock, and Donald placed a nice pathway with river rock, and then we filled it in with gravel around the edges. Again, no weed cloth or anything on the bottom. We just put in about 2 inches of gravel around the river rock. And I guess I couldn't give up all my lawn, so I actually planted an area with a native grass. It's a red fescue, and it looks really good right now. In about a month or two, it's going to be all brown, and then it'll come back again next winter. So I was just going to go around and show a few plants that we have here. The ribes here in the corner is one of the first plants that I planted. And it's been here since 2016. It's really a beautiful plant. It's also one of the keystone species. And it's past its flowering period, but I did want to show you what it looks like when it's flowering, because it's just a beautiful display. And I think that's March, February, March is when it really puts on big display. And I'll bring it out. And then the bed has some native iris in there, and the purple is penstemon. I have roses intertwined with my natives because I like roses and I like cut flowers, but also, you know what? They don't need any water. So it's works out pretty well. Again, there's no irrigation in this backyard. It's all hand water, but I don't need to water it that much. In here, there's a pink flower in the back, which is a heuchera. And then the shrub is a Oregon grape. This red flower is geum, which is not native, but it's really pretty and goes well with all the combination I have. So now I'm just going to take you up to the back here. So I have kind of two microclimates in my backyard. The north side of the yard is very sunny and warm all day long. And the south side is pretty shady and stays very moist. So I have a different plant palette in the small backyard on one side and the other side of the fence. In the back here, I have some plants that can tolerate sort of sun and shade. And that includes a mock orange, a spice bush, and then there's a dogwood a creek dogwood in the back, and a black fruited dogwood in the corner. I have over here is another one of the creek dogwoods. Now this plant doesn't look like a whole lot this time of year to me, but in the wintertime it's spectacular because it has bright orange stems, and it's just really beautiful to look at. No leaves. It's deciduous as well. Some leaves. And then I have here a native azalea. It's in full bloom right now, which looks pretty good. And heuchera, some columbine. This is all on the shady side of the yard. And I'll bring you back to, here I am. Oh. Okay, that's pretty much my yard.
Okay, Nancy, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Your garden's beautiful. How long have you been on the garden tour? I cannot remember. It's about your 7th time?
7 years, yeah.
Yeah, well, always nice to have you. So it was very interesting to me that you talked about how your front garden had changed over time as the Buckeye grew and plants had to be changed out or other plants put in. I also enjoyed how you talked about how you used small plants because they were established better and they were cheaper. So thank you for those tips. And I want to say that Leslie's garden can be viewed online in Albany. It's Leslie Zander. You can see her plant list on the Garden Tours website. And Leslie, I'm not sure what's happening on YouTube, but if you're able and want to go to YouTube and see if there are questions there and answer them, that would be terrific.
Okay, I'll try and do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for showing us your garden today.